Glad you're back here on the program. Very excited because this red chair, very soon this week, will be populated by Jordan Knight from New Kids on the Block, which I know is going to make the girls and at least 10% of the men go wild. Also, the girls and 10% of the men will go wild when Don Cherry sits in this red chair, which is also going to happen this week. Actually, something Jordan knows, or anybody in show business, Cherry as well knows, that when you're first starting out in your career, it can make a huge difference if somebody puts faith in you. That's what happened to our next guest. He was working for one of the cell phone companies in this country and decided to try stand-up comedy for the first time. In the audience that night was a guy called Russell Peters. Russell saw him and said, "I want to work with you." And that pretty much changed everything for him. He's a really funny guy, and he's the real deal. I know this because I've been lucky enough in the show to interview lots of people over the course of it, but this guy I've known longer than anybody. I think I first met him when I was 8. We grew up on the same street together, so I'm really looking forward to having him in the red chair. His name is Jay Martin. He's on his way in. Look at what he's all about.
And all of a sudden, I'm at the stop sign, and I hear a boom. That's in my back. And I'm like, Jesus. And I look in my rearview mirror, and I see a Federal Express truck, and I said, Jesus. Thank
you very kind to my friend Jay Martin. How are you, man?
I'm good.
What's going on?
Good.
So listen, man, so you're representing Canada in this U.S. versus Canada comedy clash, but before we get to all that, this is going to be this is a weird interview for us in a good way.
In a very good way.
We grew up on the same street together. I met you when I was in 4th grade.
4th grade. We go back, let them know, we go back like car seats. Like
way back. Played street hockey and other things.
Yes.
So this is cool, man.
This is so cool. Look where we're coming from.
It's bizarre.
Stills, like back in the days, Malton representing. I got a couple people on Facebook that were like, oh my God, Jay and George, it's like Malton reunion. This is great. So it feels really good for me.
It's so weird. From the early 80s is what that is. So thanks for coming. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, man. So, I mean, when you represent Canada, we hear so much, you know, Team Canada in hockey or in soccer, whatever, they talk about representing Canada. As a comic, is it the same thing?
A little different, because I guess the styles are different, but of course we're coming from our country, so we got to represent. We got to make sure we're funny, we got to bring it, and we have a life of great comics in Canada, so I got to live up to that reputation.
Russell Peters is one of the greats now. What's interesting about Russell, who's also not too far from where we grew up, he's in Brampton, Ontario, and I'm sure you knew of him when you were younger. I heard of him when I was a kid, but Russell's done a really good job of supporting others as well, helping a lot of comics come up, right? He's kind of like a father figure in that sense. He helped you out, didn't he?
Oh, big time, big time. My first ever show, I get out there on the stage, I'm nervous, there's a lot of American comics on the show, and I come and do my thing. Great show, I got a little bit of a standing ovation.
So
some of my friends, murdered that first one.
First show you killed?
Ever. Like, it was shocking. So Russell comes over and he's like, dude, how long you been doing this? I'm like, today. He's like, you've got to be kidding me. I got to take you to Montreal with me. And he gave me his phone number. The weird thing about Russell, he gave me his phone number, and it was in June, and the gig was supposed to be in October. And I called him every day, and he never answered the phone. Thanks, Russ. But he answered it like 2 days before the gig, and he was like, get in my truck. And I'm like, we're not flying? And he was like, no, get in the truck. So we drove right up, and we did the show. It was great. He introduced me. My music wasn't working because I kind of used the music to get started. And he was like, introduce this guy, Jay. I think he's going to be real funny, and there's no music. So I dropped the mic, did the macho thing, and walked off the stage and was like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. But after that, it all worked out real well, man. It worked out real well. I got to open for him a lot of times, and it was great. He taught me a lot in the early stages. I got to skip over some things.
You had a career. You had a job, man. I remember seeing you, like, slugging it out working.
Yeah.
And then you got laid off from Bell, right?
Yeah,
you were working for Bell. I saw you.
Yeah, at the galas. We'd always hook up at the galas, yeah.
And so how did you say, okay, well, guess what? Here's what I'm going to do.
I got out of there, and I said, you know what? I've been doing the comedy, and I've been doing Bell, and I said to myself, anytime that I get 2 weeks that I'm not booked, I'm going to go find a 9-to-5 and support my kids and get it all done. And I've never been 2 weeks without a booking in the last 3 years, man. It's been such a blessing. So I keep at it. I keep at it.
Another thing I like about you, now, a lot of the comedy that I listen to, and I'm such a comedy nerd.
Yeah, you know what?
tends to go really dark, man. Like blue, filthy, that if my mom walked in the room, even at my age, I'm like, trying to shut it off, right? But you work clean.
Yeah.
And that is really challenging for a lot of comics in this era.
It is. I've heard that a lot of guys find it challenging. It's funny because there's two reasons why I kind of keep it clean. One is the fact that I made a promise to my mother that I would always, uplift our family name.
I remember when your mother passed.
Yes.
We were teenagers, right?
Right, we were teenagers, like
16?
10th grade, 16, yeah. It was around my birthday, the 16th birthday, and I remember having to go visit her at, what's the one, Humber College?
Etobicoke General.
Etobicoke General. Yeah. And I'd go over and visit her, and she'd always say, please do me a favor and make sure you leave our family name in a high level, and I would say, okay, cool, Mom, I'm gonna make sure I do that. So when I started comedy, I was always thinking, I grew up in church, she'd always be, you gotta go to church. Big up to my Sevies, they'd all take me to church, and I didn't wanna disrespect
Seventh-day Adventist Church?
Yes, yes.
See, that's why he never played street hockey with us on Saturdays.
They wouldn't let me.
We would play on Sundays, he couldn't play on Saturdays.
Guys, I'll play on the team Sunday. But so she would bring me to church, so I didn't want to come out with all these MFs and all of that stuff, and I've kept it clean, and I wouldn't say it's hard, because guys like Bill Cosby, who I love, I've never heard curse. I heard he's got a little blue section, but I've never heard him curse, and I didn't feel the need to. And I think even if I were to start, people would think that's weird. He sounds weird. And I'm always thinking my kids might be watching, and they'd be like, Dad's cursing. And I didn't want to do that. It's just not my style.
When your mother was saying that to you, I mean, we say what we know our mothers want to hear, but did you fully understand what she meant, why it was so important to her that you kept the Martin name?
At that time, I didn't, because it was all happening so fast. Like, I mean, we heard that she was diagnosed, like 3 weeks later, she was gone. And I was just grabbing all of this stuff. Yeah, like cancer doesn't it doesn't watch anything. It just goes for it. And when she said that to me, I was like, okay, I want to live up to this, but I'm like, what does she mean? Devin. Devin was doing the music stuff.
And his brother was Mr. Metro. You remember that?
Yes, Mr. Metro.
Who was the first guy from our neighborhood who was famous.
Right, remember that? Like, hey, there's Devin.
He had a video of Much Music. We're like, what? But then you're right, I saw him at the bus stop, and I thought, oh, that's what a Canadian musician does in a video.
We do. We end up
take
at the bus stop, and we grab a transfer, and that's it. We connect at Islington Station. But he did the music thing, and even when I went there, I'd always be like, Dad, we got to be good. Remember what Mom said, and we got to do this. And Devin's a Rolling Stone, as you would know. But I kept trying to believe in that and hope that good things would come if I continued to stay on that path.
How old's your daughter now, 13?
My youngest is 13.
Right.
Yes.
So, Jaleesa, I remember when you first had her, but fourth grade, there was an article in her school, The Man Who Inspires Me.
Wow, yes.
And she wrote it, and The Man Who Inspires Me was my dad.
Yes.
And she talked about all the charity work you do, all the gigs that you do for different things. And it was written from the perspective of a young girl saying how much her old man means to her.
Right.
When you first heard that, what did you think?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I was in school. Her mom and I were in school, and I had a video camera, and I didn't know she had to say this in front of the whole audience at school, like the whole auditorium, and she's reading it, and I didn't know. And when I'm there, I'm trembling because I'm like, oh, and the tears running down my eyes. I'm like, the tape is good for nothing right now. It looks like, Muhammad Ali was holding it or something. It was just like, it's all over the place. No,
so you work clean, but you don't work clean, is what you're saying.
Well, hey, man, I got to be real. Like, the camera, you can't even watch it again, G. I'm telling you. I was like, But it was a real heartfelt moment. I'm so proud of her. The next year, she got valedictorian at that school. Very bright young girl, nothing like her dad. But she's fantastic. She's fantastic.
Man, you're doing good. I'm so happy to see you. Thanks so much.
I'm loving it.
J. Mark, I'm loving it.